April 2004. Life is moving along. I'm still working at Frame Art Galleries in Westlake, Ohio. And that's about it. That's all I remember what I was doing in April 2004. But my time at Frame Art will be coming to a close soon. And I read some books. A lot of books ish. Not the most I've read in a month, but a pretty good amount. And we're going to jump right in ish. Again, apparently I'm going to say ish a lot this video. In the last month, the last book that I read was the first in trilogy. Time of Judgment, Act 1, Gehenna, The Final Night, by Ari Marmel. And so, the first book that I read in April of 2004 was Time of Judgment, Act 2, The Last Battle, Bill Bridges. Now, this trilogy is from White Wolf Publishing, who makes role-playing games, Vampire the Masquerade, Werewolf the Apocalypse, etc., etc. This trilogy is bringing those games to a conclusion before they start some brand new role-playing games. But the first book tied up all the loose ends, essentially, with the vampires. And in this book, Time of Judgment, Act 2, The Last Battle by Bill Bridges, it's Werewolf the Apocalypse's turn. So you have a bunch of characters from a bunch of short stories and novels, characters we've been introduced to all over the place, involved in the final apocalypse. It's happening in this book, and all the werewolves are trying to stave it off. Probably some infighting as well. You know how werewolves are. But it brings essentially the whole game system of Werewolf the Apocalypse to an end. That's Time of Judgment, Act 2, The Last Battle by Bill Bridges. And I followed that up with Time of Judgment, Act 3, Judgment Day by Bruce Baugh, B-A-U-G-H. And this is essentially the same thing, but this time it's Mage the Ascension. So Mage is magic users. They're fighting against technocrats, I think is what they're called. And again, we have characters from short stories, novels, different things, all coming together, all for the final battle. Everyone's going to be judged for their sins, and it's going to bring this game system to a conclusion. And not bad. The whole trilogy, I think, does a pretty decent job of tying up all of these things. If you read the books or played the games, it's tying everything up in a neat little bow, so they can sort of start over with new games based on Vampire, Werewolf, etc. So that was Time of Judgment, Act 3, Judgment Day by Bruce Baugh, we'll say. I don't know. All right, then I got a nice little stack of books here that I actually own. Books I'd like to reread sometime relatively soon. But next up we have Micronauts, the Time Traveler Trilogy, Book 1 by Steve Lyons. This is from iBooks. Whoever they are, iBooks. I love that cover of Baron Karza. In case anybody doesn't know, Micronauts were a toy line they were supposed to be microscopic people, good guys and bad guys. The toys were yay big, about the size of those 6-inch G.I. Joes, but they were die-cast metal. They were dangerous action figures if you're throwing them at somebody. And they had all sorts of cool accessories and stuff, but I was a fan. The Marvel Comics did a comic book series. I have the first volume of the omnibus somewhere. But anyway, Micronauts, Time Traveler Trilogy, Book 1. Angel's Gift is this small town that just happens to have an interdimensional portal. Ryan Archer is a kid. His father's a scientist. They go to Angel's Gift to investigate, and Ryan starts is having dreams about these people, the Micronauts, and some enigmatic figure that might play a part in whether the world ends or not. Baron Karza, there's the bad guy in the Micronauts. Marvel did have a Micronauts series. I think IDW was the last publisher to do Micronauts stuff. But that's neither here nor there. Micronauts Time Traveler Trilogy. That's a tongue twister. Book 1, Steve Lyons. And I followed that up with, let's just make sure, Micronauts, the Time Traveler Trilogy, Book 2 by Steve Lyons. Now we're focusing on Kel Nanisar, the microverse warrior known as Acroyear. I believe that's him right there. So he's trying to figure out what's up with this time traveler. He's teaming up with Ryan Archer, the kid from the first book, and trying to figure out just what the hell's going on. There's a giant figure floating in the sky above Micropolis. Just wild, crazy science fiction stuff based on toys. And then we have Micronauts, the Time Traveler Trilogy, Book 3 by Steve Lyons. And Baron Karza, front and center. Been analyzing the Time Traveler. Time is moving in weird ways, and Baron Karza's trying to figure out how to save the world or the worlds. What's going on? You got to read the books to find out. As I said, I like this stuff. It's fun. Micronauts are cool. After that, excuse me, we have Bad Business by Robert B. Parker. This is a Spencer novel, and Spencer is hired by this woman to investigate her cheating husband, and then Spencer runs into another private investigator that was hired by the husband to investigate the cheating wife, and turns out there's a bunch of spouse swapping going on, which actually is going to lead into some corporate shenanigans and murder. It's Spencer. It's good. I'm a bigger fan of the older stuff, the first, 12 or 15 or 20, but the books are they're still well worth reading later in the series. I prefer the older books in the series, but it's Spencer. It's Bad Business. It's got Hawk and all your favorite Spencer characters. Bad Business, Robert B. Parker. After that, we have Dusted, the Unauthorized Guide to Buffy the Vampire Slayer by Lawrence Miles, Lars Pearson, and Krista Dixon. This is basically what it says. It does have a great painted cover. I really love the cover of this book. So it's an episode guide, gives you the breakdown of every single episode of the TV show, but I think where this one might stand out amongst all the other official guides and unofficial guides and everything else is this also covers, at least up to the point it came out, the comic books and the novels, which is fun. So, Dusted, the Unauthorized Guide to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Lawrence Miles, Lars Pearson, Krista Dixon. After that, we have Bumper Crop by Joe R. Lansdale. This is I believe, a curated collection of short stories, curated by Joe Lansdale himself. There's an introduction to every story. I think it's pre-story. Basically, story notes talking about the inspiration for the story and anecdotes around the story. This includes, I only wrote down one title because it's the big one, which is God of the Razor is included in this collection. But it's Joe Lansdale. Great short story writer, and I love story notes. And Joe Lansdale knows how to write a story note as well. The whole thing is just entertaining. Bumper Crop by Joe R. Lansdale. You notice I'm not holding anything up because I don't have a copy anymore, but I'm gonna have to get one. Bumper Crop, Joe R. Lansdale. The penultimate book that I read in April of 2004. We're going back to another trilogy, but I read the first book. Let's see. Let's just look back here and see if I can find it really quickly. No, just a quick glance doesn't tell me where it was. Maybe you'll remember. But this is The Transformers, Book 2, Annihilation, by David Sion. And this is another one from iBooks. So, in the first book, if I remember correctly, there is an alien race. Well, I guess there's multiple alien races, but what we might consider an alien race of these giant techno things, and the Autobots and the Decepticons have come to Earth, battling this other alien race of techno things. So in Annihilation, the Autobots and the Decepticons have to come together to try to fight this alien menace. And you'd think that the world's governments would come together as well. But, it's us. Come on. No, we're not going to work together. But big, giant, crazy Transformers action. And then the last book that I read in April of 2004 is Transformers Book 3, Fusion, by David Sion, also from iBooks. The culmination of the trilogy, the Keepers is what they're called. The war against the Keepers reaches its dramatic conclusion. Maybe I'm reaching my dramatic confusion. So again, Autobots and Decepticons working together. But of course, Decepticons are deceptive. Hey, I wonder if there's a connection. So you can't trust Megatron. And the President of the United States basically says, hey, kill everyone. If they're not a human, if they're not from Earth, just kill them all. So what's going to happen? It's good stuff. Again, I like the Transformers. Marvel Comics did a comic series. I would love to have that one. Don't know if that's ever going to get reprinted in a package that I can afford. But that's it. That's everything that I read in April of 2004. Almost everything. It was everything but 2 books. It was a media tie-in of some sort. So there you go. But you know what? Next week for you guys, next month for my list, we're going to see some new things, some special things. We're also going to see some media tie-ins. That's hasn't ended. I'm still reading media tie-ins. But it's the year of big changes in my reading, and we're going to see a little bit more of that reflected. Question for this video. I actually thought ahead for once. What toy would make a good book? So as I said, we got Transformers. We got Micronauts. Both toy lines. So I was thinking, what other toys could actually make an interesting story? There have been movies based on board games. Clue, fantastic movie. Absolutely love that flick. Battleship, haven't even bothered to see it. Hear it's terrible. Feel like I'm forgetting something. There might be something else. We're not going to get into video games. But as far as toys go, I was thinking about this, and for my purposes, we'll say a game can be a toy, especially if it's a game like Hungry Hungry Hippos. Now, there has been at least one, possibly more, fake movie trailers for a Hungry Hungry Hippos movie. But I think with the right author, you could make a great killer animal novel about hippos and call it Hungry Hungry Hippos. And then I had I had three that I had thought of, but I've forgotten one of them. Trying to, as I talk, as I slowly just stare at the camera and say words, I'm trying to think of what one of them was. Maybe it'll come to me if I talk about the third one, which was Don't Break the Ice. Oh, I remember what the other one is now, but Don't Break the Ice. For those of you who are too young to know what this is, it was a game where you had like a little square table essentially, but the top of the table was empty. So almost like a frame with legs. And you put these plastic ice cubes inside that frame so they were tight, filled the whole thing. So it was maybe 5x5 or 6x6 grid of these ice cubes. And I think you might have put a little figure on top. And then you had a little plastic hammer. And each player would take that hammer and they would knock out one ice cube. Hand the hammer to the next player. They'd knock out an ice cube. You're basically knocking out ice cubes until someone knocks one out and the whole thing collapses, and that person's the loser. So I was thinking, I actually thought about this, and this was just kind of off the top of my head. You've got a group of people who are ice fishing or ice camping or something. They're out in the middle of a lake on the ice. And for whatever reason, maybe it's climate change and starving animals, this lake that they're on is surrounded by hungry wolves or polar bears, depending on where they're at. Some sort of ravenous animal. And, we'll have the first person would walk off the lake not knowing what's about the danger, and they get killed. And so everybody else, they're stuck on the ice. They can't leave because of these animals that are surrounding it. And it also happens to be a heat wave, and the ice is melting. It's getting thinner and thinner. So that was I don't know. Maybe you could do something, write some tense thriller about Don't Break the Ice. And then the other one I thought of was the Creepy Crawler Maker. Again, for those who don't know, Creepy Crawler Maker was basically a little oven that one had, and you had these die-cast molds that had insects and reptiles, and this colorful liquid, and you would put the liquid into the mold, and you could mix colors and do things, and then you'd slide it into this little oven that I know the Easy Bake Oven was heated by a light bulb. I don't remember if the Creepy Crawler Maker was heated by a light bulb or actually had heating elements. But you'd slide in this square metal mold, slide it into your little oven, and for a set amount of time, and it would bake this liquid that you had used, and then you push it out, like pushing a pizza through the end, and you let it cool down, and then you pop this rubber. You just made a rubber spider or a rubber snake or whatever. I mean, they were tiny. I think they're still around. They've created more things than just spiders and snakes. I actually had one with Spider-Man molds, and it actually had little wire pieces that you could put in before you baked it, so you could make them bendy. And but anyway, so just a crazy, over-the-top idea for a creepy crawler novel where you have some mad scientist, who it could go one of two ways. Either they're making normal-sized spiders, snakes, whatever, insects and reptiles, and they're making just millions and millions of them, and they're going out and killing people, or they're making giant versions of insects and reptiles, so they don't have to make quite as many, and they're going out and killing people. But it's just some guy in his lab making these things. So those were the three that I thought of. And if anybody doesn't know about Hungry Hungry Hippos, it's a board, or a plastic tray, whatever. It's got 4 hippopotami around it with a lever. And when you hit the lever, the hippopotamus mouth kind of goes up, out, and down and back. And the tray is filled with marbles. And you're just hitting this lever and trying to get as many marbles as you can. And once all the marbles are gone, can have up to 4 people playing. Once all the marbles are gone, whoever got the most is the winner. So as I said, those are the 3 that I thought of. What about you? Can you think of any toys that would make could make a good book, a good story? Try to avoid going generic, like a killer doll. Yeah, of course. But there have been G.I. Joe novels, short stories. So I avoided things like that. I'm avoiding things that are already based on things like Star Wars action figures or Marvel or DC action figures, that kind of thing. But let me know. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here on my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. All the usual YouTube stuff. If you care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is @Ronan5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, fuzzy animals, is EricSmith5757. And on Blue Sky, I am @EL Smith. That is all I have for you this week. So until next week, read more books.